Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everybody. How are you today? I hope all of you in a good condition and always stay healthy and stay safe. We are from Group 5 and we are going to present our materials is about gestures and non-verbal communication. Before it, let us introduce ourselves. My name is Riuli Utami and my student number is 17052. And then my friends, Nabila Nur Safira with student number 17031. And then Ailsa Tanjung Garneta with student number 17051. And then the last Usfelda Tera Cirsinsi with the student number 17057. In this presentation, we are going to explain to you about two topics. The first topic is nonverbal communication and then the second topic is about gestures. The first topic is nonverbal communication. We are going to explain you about the definition, the types, the example, and the others. It's same too in gestures. We are also explaining you about the definition, the types, the example, and the others. For your information, gestures actually one of nonverbal communication types, or it includes a nonverbal communication. What is the definition of nonverbal communication? So this is actually the biggest question before we learn about nonverbal communication. What is actually the definition of nonverbal communication? What is nonverbal communication? Because of that, I'm going to explain to you about the definition of nonverbal communication. So actually, nonverbal communication is a way to communicate with body language like physical behavior, expression, and mannerism. It is often done instinctively rather than consciously and usually known as the opposite of the oral and written forms. Often done instinctively rather than consciously, it's like sometimes we are unaware to do nonverbal communication. For example, in Indonesia, if we want to say no, we will shake our heads without realizing it or unconsciously. Although no word is used in nonverbal communication, but it is more effective to communicate human feelings more accurately than verbal communication. Next is the types of nonverbal communication. So actually there are 9 types of nonverbal communication, and we are going to tell you one by one about the types of nonverbal communication. The first is postures and body language. It's more subtle and less definitive. We communicate many messages by the way we talk, we walk, stand, and sit. For example, as a teacher, learning slightly forward communicates to the students that you are approachable and friendly. Another example, if a person is bored, he gazes around the room rather than look at the speaker, or he often moves the position. The second is eye gaze. Amount of eye contacts such as looking, staring, and blinking. This is have important role in nonverbal communication and such things as looking, staring, blinking. When people looking at another person, it can indicate many emotions like interest and attraction. Third is paralinguistics. It's aspect of the voice apart from speech, such as pitch, tone, and speed of speaking. We should consider our tone of voice if we want to communicate so it can give the right meaning. For example, if we say it in a strong tone of voice, listener may interpret approval and enthusiasm. If we say it in hesitant tone of voice, it may convey a lack of interest. Then, closeness or personal space or proxemics. It determines the level of intimacy that has varies on the culture. Distance is another communication tool that expresses of intimate and individual acceptance. For example, in another country, people really need their personal space. If we want to talk with them, we should keep the distance so we are not to get too close. We also should respect their privacy to not asking something that really their privacy, such as about marriage, old, background, and the other. Number 5 is facial expression. Hard to control consciously, such as smiling, frowning, and blinking. The face is an important communicator. It says that face is the index of the mind because it is express many emotions like happy, sad, angry, fear, confusion, interest, and uncertainty. For example, if we hear about good news like there is no lesson for today, we will smiling consciously and it means that we are happy or liking this situation. Number 6 is physiological change. Almost impossible to control consciously and can be said as the indicator of mental state. For example, we may sweat or blink when we are nervous and your heart rate is also increased. It is almost impossible to control it. Number 7 is haptics or touching. Used to communicate affection, familiarity, sympathy, and others. By touching, we are express many emotions. However, the accepted touch depending on the gender, age, intimacy, and background of person. For example, in Indonesia, if person touch another person, it means that he want to say something.
Now we move to number 8. Number 8 is appearance. Color, clothing, hairstyles, and other that alter psychological reaction, judgment, and interpretation. So, our choice of color, clothing, hairstyles, and other factors affecting appearance are also considered a means of nonverbal communication. Research on color psychology has demonstrated that different colors can evoke different moods. Appearance can also alter psychological reaction, judgment, and interpretation. Just think of all the subtle judgment you quickly make about someone based on his or her appearance. These first impressions are important, which is why experts suggest that job seekers dress appropriately for interviews with potential employers. Culture is an important influence of on how appearances are judged. While thinness tends to be valued in Western culture, some African cultures reach full figure bodies to better health, wealth, and social status. And then, number 9, artifacts, symbol like objects an image to represent their self and their do for living. Objects and images are also tools that can be used to communicate nonverbally. On an online forum, for example, in your social media, you might select an avatar to represent your identity online and to communicate information about who you are and the things you like. People often spend a great deal of time developing a particular image and surrounding themselves with objects designed to convey information about the things that are important to them. For example, a uniform. So, a uniform can uniform can be used to transmit a tremendous amount of information about a person. Like we can say a soldier will don fatigues, a police officer will wear a uniform, and a doctor will wear a white lab coat. At a mere glance, these outfits tell people what a person does for a living. And then examples of nonverbal communication. So your heart. First example is your heart rate is increased and getting sweat or blinks a lot, so it shows that you are nervous. And the second, white lab coat. So when we see that someone using white lab coat, it shows that she or he is a doctor. Number three, focus, gaze, and steady eye contact. It means that you are telling the truth or being honest. And then the last, when your friend asks you, you are okay, and your reply, I'm okay, with a cold tone, it means that you are not fine. Importance and the function of nonverbal communication. So, the importance is it can have a great impact on the listener and the outcome of the communication. And then the function are first to know this communication is not that simple. When we say about communication, so we often mean that what we say is the word that we use. However, interpersonal communication is much more than the explicit meaning of words and the information or message that they convey. It also includes implicit message, whether intentional or not, which are expressed through nonverbal behaviors. And then number two, to know that also can be both conscious and unconscious. And then the last but not least, to learn things that will support your words. So, nonverbal communication includes facial expression, the tone and pitch of the voice, gesture displayed through body language, and the physical distance between the communicators. So, these nonverbal signals can give clues and additional information and meaning over and above spoken communication.
Okay, so the next is the use of nonverbal communication. The first one is reinforce or modify what is said in words. For example, you may nod your head when you say yes to say that you agreed with the statement. And then the second is convey information about their emotional state, like facial expression, tone of voice, and body language to show what you feel to the people that you talk. And if you cannot explain it on the long sentences, like you said, I'm sorry, and you show your sorrow face. And then the third is define or reinforce the relationship between people. So if you see a couple sitting with each other and mirroring each other's gestures like smiling at the same time, that movement can be mean that it helps them to feel connected. And then the fourth is provide feedback to the other person, like smiling and nodding to someone when you are listening and agreeing to the speaker. All those signals mean to give information in a gentle way but clearly. And then the fifth is regulate the flow of communication. Like we can take a look for the example of we want to speak.
like making eye contact to the speaker and nodding slightly. Well, that can be mean or indicated as we want to speak next or we want to speak after the speaker. Next, we talk about gesture. Okay, so the definition of the gesture itself is one of the types of nonverbal communication that using physical action and using your entire body become the instrument of speech. Well, it helps verbal communication become more effective. After the definition, we talk about the types of gestures. Okay, so the first one is descriptive gesture. Well, this gesture explain more about the verbal message and help the audience to understand between comparison, contrast, and visualize the size. And then the second is emphatic gesture. Well, this gesture underscore the things that already being said. And then the third is suggestive gesture, that this kind of symbols of ideas and emotions that helps the speaker to express their heart or their certain wishes. Okay, so the fourth is prompting gesture. Well, it helps to increase the response from the audience, like when you are being a speaker and you clap your hands to make the audience become well responsive to your words.
So previously you had known about the types of gestures, and now I'm going to tell you about some example of gestures. The first example is gesture of clenched fist. It usually used to show the determination or the anger of the speaker. And number two, gesture of open palm. Usually it is used to show a suggestion or the readiness of the speaker to give or receive something. It can be ideas or maybe suggestion. And number three, gesture of a shrug of the shoulder. Usually when people use it, they are ignorant or confused about the situation or to show the irony. And the last example is hand claps. When the speaker do hand claps in front of their audience, it means that they are trying to make the audience become more reactive or more attentive to their speech. So we are going to the next part, importance and the function of gestures. So the importance of gesture is when people make gesture, they at the same time they are trying to draw attention from the audience, and usually it works. Also, when children are using this gesture, they improve their communication skill. Not only that, when people make gestures during their speech, they are also will become more understanding and communicating well to the others. Gesture also help people to understand the mute and deaf people, because there are also sign language for them, which is particularly similar with the gesture, but not really same. And the function of the gesture are so many, and I will try to tell you 7. So the function of the gestures, number 1 is to clarify and support your words. So when you try to speak about something and you use your gestures, it can strengthen your meaning of your speech, and it also makes the audience more understanding of what you're saying. And number 2 is to dramatize your ideas, because when you talk about your ideas and at the same time you also do gestures, it it helps the audience to try to paint about what you have in mind. And number 3, to lend emphasis and vitality to the spoken words. When you try to point the necessary part of your speech, you can make some gesture, for example, nodding your head or using hand gesture. It can help you to convey your feelings and attitudes more clearly. And number 4 is to help dissipate nervous tension, because when people do some gestures, usually they are less nervous than those who are not. And number 5, to function as visual aids, because when you use gesture, you can enhance audience attentiveness and retention to you as well. And number 6 is stimulate audience participation, because when you do gesture, the audience also will try to respond you from their gesture as well. And number 7 is to be highly visible. Usually it can be happens in front of the large number of people, when they may not see your eyes, but they are still attentive to your speech because they can see your gesture. Last but not least, how to use gestures effectively. Number 1, respond naturally to what you think, feel, and say. Just don't try to use gesture as others do. What I mean is, don't get gestures, try to imitate someone else's gesture. Just do gestures spontaneously. And number 2, create the conditions for gesturing, but not gesture. It means that you can create a condition that can make you gesture more spontaneously and natural. Number 3, suit the action to the word and the occasion. For example, you can use strong and empathic gestures. Also, you can use it as purposeful and reflective your words. And it can be more convincing to your audience. Number 4, make your gestures convincing, so your audience will be more understand about what you say. Number 5, make your gestures smooth and well-timed. You can gesture in the good time. I mean, you gesture at the proper speech. And also, don't try to memorize the gesture. And the last one is, make gesture natural, spontaneous as a habit. You can practice it day by day before you are performing as a speaker, or you also practice it when you talk to anybody. Just try to relax and gesture naturally and spontaneously like what you do. Okay, this is our presentation about gestures and nonverbal communication. I hope this is beneficial for you. Thank you, and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.